Welcome back to Hear Me Out Sports, where we are covering quarterbacks today. Let's run it. All right, quarterbacks, huge position, right? So we need to make sure you get set up with the right one. For that, we're going to review Week 7. We did a little bit better. We are at 60.71% as far as quarterbacks are concerned in our Week 7 review. So hits Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, and Justin Herbert. I told you, bench him, and start him, and they all came out through. Misses, Jared Goff. They continue to be a low-scoring offense through the last 3 weeks, one of those being a bye week, so that doesn't count. But we'll cover that more in a little bit. Jimmy G, I thought he was going to break. He almost did, actually, so I'm not necessarily disappointed in that one. And then Justin Fields, I did say in my last video that I like where they're going, and I think that they can produce decent numbers with that. As far as some of these close calls, though, we got Trevor Lawrence, Davis Mills, and Justin Herbert. They were all very close. None of those would really help me, but pretty all right. Now we're going to head over to Week 8 buys, where we got the Kansas City Chiefs and the LA Chargers. That means that we are without Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. Patrick Mahomes, pretty big loss. Justin Herbert, it's a loss, not as big as we probably would have thought at the beginning of the season, but a loss nonetheless. And with that, I think we're just going to jump straight into it. Week 1, Thursday, we got the Ravens versus the Buccaneers. Lamar Jackson, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I have him in the sit column so far. In the last 4 of the last 7 games, he did not break that threshold. Now, they're still decent games, but with him going against Tampa Bay's defense, which is all right, I think that he's just not going to be able to break that 19 points again. Seems like they're not in the groove. They have the right weapons, but just things aren't going well there. He still does average 23 points per game. So, I mean, if you start him, no one's going to think you're an idiot for starting him. In fact, most people probably think you're an idiot for sitting him. On Buccaneers side, though, he is only 2 for 7 as far as breaking that threshold 2 weeks out of the 7 that he's played. He averages 15 points per game, and his ceiling isn't a Tom Brady ceiling. It's at 25.4 points. Not bad at all, but, a little bit worried about that. But let's keep in mind, though, Baltimore does give up a decent amount of points, but this is a Thursday night game, so expect disappointment, I guess, because that's just the theme of the season. Here we are, Sunday, Denver Broncos versus Jacksonville Jaguars. Russell Wilson, I'm going to keep it in the sit column. I don't like him. I never thought he was a great quarterback. I'll continue to say that. And I just think that he's not really doing much in that offense. He's also coming off of a little bit of an injury. We're still kind of unsure if he's for sure playing. He averages 15.23 points, which, let's keep in mind, that's more than Tom Brady. But it's just not a high-scoring offense. Jacksonville's defense is also pretty decent. So with the fact that he has only broken threshold 1 of 7 weeks, I mean, he's just not a confident start there for me. Jacksonville Jaguars, on the other hand, we got Trevor Lawrence. They're going against the number 1 defense there in Denver, who only gives up 10.1 points to opposing quarterbacks. I guess that is something to know. I do think a lot of their opponent's yards come off penalty, because Denver seems to have problems with that. So that is something to keep in mind, but I do think they still have a decent defense. He's only broken 2 games right now of the threshold, but 2 games he was within a half of a point, so that would have made him 4. I think he has a decent range, and that there's good opportunity there. So he is a fringe, even though I have him in the sit column. Heading over to Atlanta, where we got the Carolina Panthers versus the Atlanta Falcons. PJ Walker, he had a decent game. I'm not going to lie. Last week was impressive, and he was able to support 4 targets, which is pretty crazy. 2 running backs, a tight end, and DJ Moore. But listen, if you looked at his stats beforehand, he was throwing more interceptions than touchdowns by at least 2 or 3 times. So that's not something you want. I don't see the success continuing. I don't think he just magically got better over a season. So I have him in the sit column. With the Falcons, I have him also in the sit column. I think that just the attempts aren't there. We saw in Week 7 that they only passed 13 times. That's Justin Fields' numbers. So with that being said, I don't feel good starting him if he can't pass more than, 20 times, especially if he's not hyper efficient. I do think they are a run-first offense, and Carolina's defense is actually all right. Now we'll head over to the Dallas Cowboys versus Chicago Bears game. Great week 7 for Justin Fields. Still not a ton of attempts, but he had solid runs. He gained 82 yards just on foot, which is one of the reasons why I like him as a potential quarterback for fantasy. But they are going against a tough defense who's ranked number 4 against the quarterback, only giving up 12 points per game. So I think they'll give him enough trouble that, yeah, sure, I think he might break 15 points, but he's not going to break 19. Dallas, on the other hand, Dak Prescott, we still have him in the sit column. He had a decent game last week, but he wasn't even able to break the threshold against the Detroit Lions. So I think the Chicago Bears are going to give him more trouble, especially considering the fact that they're number 9. And listen, they didn't even score much in that game until the fourth quarter. We'll head over now to Detroit, where we got the Miami Dolphins playing the Lions. This I expect to be a blowout. Tua. I hope he can get his points in early, because if not, they're going to run out the clock. That's my only concern. They are a good offense. He had a decent week 7, and Detroit's defense is ranked number 29 overall, meaning they give almost 22 points up per game to opposing quarterbacks. I think the biggest upside would be if Detroit Lions can hang in there like they did for the first 4 weeks of the season and be a high-scoring offense, then this could just turn into a shootout. Detroit, you got Jared Goff in the sit column. In the last 2 games, he's averaged around 3.5 points, and that's hurt. I had Jared Goff, and he's hurt me both those weeks, kind of aiding in a loss or two. He doesn't have a lot of attempts. There's too many turnovers. He had 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles. And I need to see the beginning of the season Lions, not the end of the season Lions, before I feel comfortable starting him again. But let's keep in mind, Miami's defense is number 28 overall, so they're giving up over 20 points per game as well. Cardinals versus Vikings. Kyler Murray, I have him in the start column. He did not hit last week, but I think with him and DeAndre Hopkins finding their groove and kind of moving in that direction, especially with adding Robbie Anderson and hopefully him getting to know the playbook, I think that he has a lot of potential. He still does average 19 points per game, so I do like him as an option. Even if he plays bad, it's usually not terrible. Minnesota, we got Kirk Cousins also in the start. I think he has pretty good range as far as his floor to ceiling. They're coming off a bye week, and they're playing a not great Arizona defense, who's number 27 overall, giving up, again, over 20 points per game. So I think he could have a heyday with this. Heading over now to New Orleans, where we got the Raiders versus the Saints. Las Vegas, he is only 1 for the 6 weeks so far that they've played. Decent targets, but they're just not doing much with them. I do think that Las Vegas has a good ground game so that they can depend on it if they need to. And so he is a fringe start just because when you have someone like Devontae Adams as your target, it's hard to sit you. But he hasn't proven that he is consistently breaking that 90-point threshold. New Orleans, I got Andy Dalton in the start column. A little bit interesting, mainly because he had a phenomenal week 7. The attempts were there. He was efficient, and he kind of showed us where his ceiling's at. He had 4 touchdowns. I don't think that this is going to improve at all. I think that this is his absolute ceiling. But I think he could still break that 19 points against a number 32 ranked Las Vegas defense who gives up over 24 points per game. Now he has to fix those interceptions because even though he threw 4 TDs, he had 3 interceptions. We'll head over to Jets versus Patriots now with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi in the sit column. Mainly because I think they're going to start Mac Jones, and if he's sucking, then they'll put Bailey Zappi in again, which is just taking a quarter away from Bailey Zappi. I do think Bailey Zappi is the better option. Neither are super great options, and New York's defense is actually all right. They're number 11 overall. They only give up just shy of 15 points per game, so that could be some trouble to both these quarterbacks who are young and trying to find their groove. On the Jets side, Zach Wilson, he's in the sit column. Out of the 4 weeks, he's only broken that threshold once. Not of a ton of attempts. In the last game, he only threw 21 times. So it's hard to really get... You have to be very efficient to break that 90-point threshold on 21 passes. And he's averaging 11.78 points per game. So I don't trust him too much as a quarterback right now. I know he has the ability because he's proven in the past, but in the last 3 weeks, he kind of hasn't. Steelers versus Eagles. Kenny Pickett, I got in the sit column. He's 0% of the year, averaging 12.48 points per game. And Philadelphia's defense is number 2 against the quarterback, giving up only 11.5 points per game. So all those combined to say Kenny Pickett's not really going to do too much. On the Eagles side, too, I think that they're going to score a lot early, and so then they're just going to run out the clock. Philadelphia, you got Jalen Hurts in the start column. He's 4 for 6 right now. He's doing pretty well. He averages 24.48 points per game. That's what we need from a quarterback, those high scores. His floor is 16.9, which is absolutely ridiculous. On a bad day, I'll take him. And he is a dual threat, as we've talked about before. Pittsburgh also gives up almost 20 points per game, so that could play into his favor. Heading over to Houston, where we got Titans versus Texans. Ryan Tannehill, Malik Willis. We'll see who plays. There is some injury concern, and I really do want to see Malik Willis get another chance. But so far, he's net in the negatives. He had one fumble in the one game he played in, and that has put him in a season total of like negative point-something points. They are a run-heavy offense, and they trust very much in Derrick Henry there. And he's only averaging, for Ryan Tannehill, only averaging 12 points per game. So either way, I don't think you start either of these quarterbacks, but I think Malik Willis has more potential. Houston, Texas, Davis Mills, he did actually have a decent game last week, and he has a good matchup against the Tennessee defense here, who gives up over 20 points, and he had good attempts. He had 42 attempts, but the reason I have him in the sit column is because those were all season highs. He's only 1 for 6 so far on the season, breaking that threshold. So I need to see it again before I can actually trust that this isn't just like some fluke game that he decided to go off in and have some season highs and attempts and yards and completions, all that. Heading over now, though, to Indianapolis, where we got the Commanders versus Colts. Taylor Heineke, I do like Heineke. I think he actually performed pretty well in Week 7. I need to see a repeat to at least even consider him a start option. But listen, I think he usually starts off pretty hot in the season and then tends to cool down through the rest of the season. On Indianapolis' side, this is going to be the debut of Sam Ehlinger. I don't think they have that great of targets there for him, and I haven't seen him yet. So again, I'm excited. I want to see this opportunity, but let's keep in mind also that Nick Foles is there, and he could easily take over if Ehlinger is not doing his job. We got the 49ers versus the Rams, where Jimmy G I have in the start column. He had a good Week 7. He almost broke that threshold, and I do believe that he still can. They've added a really good target there in Christian McCaffrey. I misspoke in the tight end video, by the way. Christian McCaffrey is indeed on the 49ers. I knew that. I think I said he was on the Falcons or something like that. Yeah, that's just on me. But let's... oh, no, I said he was on the Cardinals. Anyway, sorry. High scoring. There's potential in this game. But I think the LA Rams, they have a decent defense. They're number 8 on the season so far against the quarterback. So they could kind of give him some trouble, but with his targets there, I guess we'll see if he has Deebo Samuel too, but I think that with Brandon Ayuk, Chris McCaffrey, and George Kittle, he's got enough targets. With the Rams, they only really have one real target, and that's Cooper Kupp. They don't really use too many other people. Matthew Stafford's only averaging just over 12 points per game. They give up lots of sacks, and this is a decent San Francisco defense, giving up only 14.3 points per game. So I think that they could give them enough trouble. With the New York Giants versus Seattle Seahawks, I got both of these guys benched. Listen, both of these guys are kind of fringe in my book. Daniel Jones, he can actually do well. He had a good Week 7, but he's only 2 for 7 on the year so far, breaking that threshold. He's inconsistent, and the biggest thing is you can't predict it. It's not like, oh, he's playing a bad team, so let's start him. No, he played Jacksonville, who actually has a decent defense, and he still put up, I think those were season high numbers for the week. And he kind of proved that he has a rushing upside, which is kind of weird. I don't see Daniel Jones as a rushing upside. But Seattle gives up 19 points per game, so he could still find some success here. Seattle, I want to see Geno Smith continue to succeed, but without Metcalf and going against an all right New York Giants defense, I kind of have a hard time putting him in the start column. Aaron Rodgers in the Green Bay Packers versus the Bills game is in the sit column because he's still 0%. And he's going against a really good Buffalo Bills defense that we've seen. They're number 6 overall, giving up 12.5 points per game. And I think that their team is revolving around the running backs. You have A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, and they either are running or passing to him. And it kind of just depends on the day of what they're doing. Buffalo, listen, no-brainer. Josh Allen, he's in the start column. With him and Stephon Diggs just connecting, it's hard not to ever start them. They're always putting up over 20 points each per game, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. Now we'll go over to our Monday game where we got the Bengals versus the Browns. Joe Burrow, I got in the start column. I think he's gotten progressively better throughout the year. His numbers show that for sure. I think that there's so many targets there that's hard for him not to succeed. And you can see that with all his receivers, each one could have a phenomenal. 2 out of 3 usually have a pretty good day. One of them usually goes kind of more unnoticed, but it's because the opposing team has to guard someone. They can't guard all 3, though. And Cleveland, on the other hand, I got Jacoby Brissett in the sit column because he's still 0% of the season, and they just don't have a solid offense. And I think that they are also focused more on the running back game. And with that, we're going to close it out. Like, comment, subscribe. I try to make this video a little bit faster, try to get you that information a little bit quicker so that you can just make your picks, put your lineups in, and maybe pick up some people who you might need if you're dealing with buys or injuries. Some people who you might be looking at, I would say Daniel Jones could be an option and Geno Smith could be an option. As I continue to look through this, I'd even put Taylor Heineke in there, but I can understand if you don't. Still looking. There's not a lot of options here. Derek Carr, I'd put in one of those columns where he's probably not going to break in 19, but maybe getting you more than 15. Jared Goff, it depends how they perform. Dak Prescott has the potential there. And those are some names that you can rely on if you, I don't know, if they're not picked up, you're in a 2-quarterback league, maybe you just need someone. Those are some of the people you might be looking at. So again, like, comment, subscribe. Talk with us. We'll talk back, and we'll catch you next week when we cover more tight ends, more receivers, more running backs, more quarterbacks to try to help you win your games. So logging off here.